This episode is brought to you by the Man's 2007 Summer Demo. Have you ever wondered what Slint would sound like if they were a screamo band? Wonder no more with the Man's 2007 Summer Demo. 4 tracks blending the classic style of the godfathers of instrumental and emotional rock music with screaming. That's right, 4 full songs, all for your screamotionally charged emo needs. Don't delay. Check out the Man's Summer 2007 Demo at mans.bandcamp.com. And once again, that's mans.bandcamp.com. Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Edie Quinn, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to remind you about our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanmachine, where you can go to sign up to read zines, get music sneak peeks, and so much more. That's patreon.com/humanmachine. And now, I'd like to play something for you. You're hearing Slow Decay by Reds, featuring my new pal Evan Kilgore on vocals. The song comes from their new LP, The Truth of Impermanence, which will be out this fall on Council Records and Gene Scene Tapes.
I'm 46, and so I was coming up and kind of getting into all this through the early and mid 90s and late 90s. And so, internet and playlists were minimally around, and I was getting into all this before even Napster or anything. And so mixtapes were definitely for me. And I got I got mixtapes back in the day on AOL, in the punk chat room on AOL. I grew up in Louisiana. I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So, especially in my school, there were punks, or really any punks that I knew in person around the time when I was getting into all this stuff. Knew a few friends that were like metalheads and into alternative stuff. But yeah, I think a couple mixtapes that I really remember. There's this woman named Nicole who lives in Richmond that we were friends on AOL Punk Chat, and she put a bunch of on a mixtape, a lot of No Idea Records stuff from the kind of late 90s. I Hate Myself, Discount. I think
Claire
there was
Mel.
some Action Patrol there from.
What about Claire Mel? That's one of the...
Claire Mel. I got into Claire Mel through going into after finding out about kind of I think I Hate Myself was the main No Idea band. But yeah, anytime you got a mixtape back then, it was like you'd get into one of the bands, you'd find out what record label they're on, you'd figure out how to get one of those record label catalogs. And so the mixtape that Nicole made for me definitely got me into the No Idea stuff and got a big No Idea catalog, and then ended up going hard and digging into that really deeply and making a huge order from No Idea and kind of going around town in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for like a week or two. And this was like a year or so after getting the mixtape, probably getting friends to just circle things in the catalog, and kind of got a lot of friends into things via that. Fancying myself as a distro, but it wasn't really a distro. It was kind of just like, hey, everybody order this stuff, and if we order enough, we get it for cheaper. And and so Nicole made me that mixtape, and then that had a lot of the kind of screamier emo stuff. And then I was dating this woman kind of in the sphere of being an internet dating pioneer in like 1998. Dated this woman Amanda, who was in California, we also met on it, and then I moved out to Southern California for the summer and dated her, and she made me a mixtape that had a lot of the maybe snappier, poppier emo stuff. So the big things that I remember on there were Joan of Arc, Get Up Kids, Cat and Jazz, Promise Ring, Texas is the Reason, kind of all the stuff in that realm. And so those were a couple big mixtapes for me. And then I had a friend, Jeff, in Baton Rouge, who knew I was like getting into all that stuff, and in uh, you know inappropriate and less delicate ways said, "Don't listen to all that soft stuff.
Yeah.
Here, let me get you some real emo." And we, I can't remember if he made me a mixtape. I feel like he probably did, but it was definitely a lot of sitting around his apartment, kind of freshman, sophomore year in college, just listening to records with him. And that's where I got into a lot of, Still Life was a big one for him. Gravity Records, all the Gravity Records stuff. Yeah, and like getting into more of the emo core realm. So
Uh,
those were some formative mixtapes and people who helped expose me to stuff back then. And then around that same time, my friend Taylor, um, who I ended up doing a radio show with on LSU's radio station. Um, we did a radio show, and he had probably the best record collection that I knew of in Baton Rouge, and uh, take stuff out of his collection and play stuff on the radio and go to shows with him. And so those are a bunch of people who were pretty formative in my mixtape and influencing in my earlier years.
yeah. It's I said Claire Mel. I feel like Claire Mel is one of the under talked about bands from that era, and I had to like I got into them specifically and a lot of bands. 'Cause I used to live in Florida, and like I was in high school, and we just like played a show, and they played, and I was just like blown away, and also like my that same band when I was in high school played a show with Assuk, and I was just like, what the fuck? So like we wanted to be Bad Religion or something, right? That band,
Yeah.
and so we played with Claire, and that was one kind of like I never heard stuff like this kind of thing.
Hmm.
It was just different enough from what I had heard, And then the other would be like Asuk, just and I'm like I never heard stuff like this, and
Yeah.
even though like I listened to like the earlier like death metal or whatever stuff, it was still different enough, and yeah, I don't know. Florida back then
And
was
that was one of the, I think that was one of the things that I loved about a label like No Idea and, kind of the Gainesville and the Florida scene was that it didn't pigeonhole itself as much as, like labels like, uh, maybe, Discord had a specific sound that
yeah.
evolved over the years, or Lookout Records had a specific sound, and they had some variation within there, but there was like the Lookout sound or the
Hmm.
Discord sound or the Ebullition sound. And those are three labels that were all huge for me, but No Idea, just it was all over the place. You had like Radon and Clairmel and I Hate Myself and Asshole Parade and Palatka and Assuck and like goofy pop punky, Less Than Jake and King Friday and all these other bands. And
Hmm.
so there's a little something for everybody there, but it definitely helped keep your horizons open and not get too pigeonholed
Yeah, well, I mean,
into one.
when you put the list of bands that were all coming out around the same time in the like when you rattle them off as a list, it's hard for people to understand when you say things like those bands like all played shows together because there were no other like you didn't
Yeah.
there weren't five bands that would fit on the same bill like all the time, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, people talk about like having mixed bill shows now like it's a like it's a light bulb moment, but it's just like that was a necessity back then. Like you would play with a band that sounded like Dead Kennedys, and also that sounded like Green Day, and also that was like death metal or whatever,
Yeah.
because that was it was just like, oh, you're not, like, you don't sound like Alice in Chains, fine, like you can play this show, and then sometimes
Yeah.
even if you did sound like Alice in Chains a little bit, but you were like DIY, you would still play that show.
Yeah. I think with a lot of these like kind of 90s uh sentimental memorabilia Instagram accounts that come up and like are posting flyers from 90s shows, it really it makes me miss, and I think I get really excited now um when we get to play a mixed bill show, and it's like, all right, like this is kind of all over the place, but it's great, and I think it again help avoid stagnation and just kind of like this circular recycling of ideas and sounds, and you get some cool stuff going on.
Yeah.
When a band like Hank, what was the band Hank Shaw, uh,
Mm-hmm.
with their like really high vocals and like super poppy, and like they're opening up for like Spaz or something.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
I love those bills.
I think the other thing for me personally is too that, like, I don't necessarily like feel this way when I'm watching like four screamo bands like that may sound similar or whatever, but I feel like the a lot of people, it it's it's like if the bands all sound different enough to where like you would consider them a different subgenre or whatever, it's like it takes this like competition air out of it where it's just like everybody can enjoy each band for what they were specifically in a more, like, it's easier for them to do that than like it's like, well, these bands all sounded similar, but I liked this one the best. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to, like, I'm a, when I go to a show, like, it, it's different than when I was younger. Like, when I was younger and I didn't have to worry about, like, if I hurt myself, I'd be hurt for like a month, like,
Yeah.
so like, when I was younger, I'd be super involved in like the more like physical aspect of a show maybe or whatever. But like now I'm really into like, for a long time when I was first starting to like actually play drums, like that's what I was obsessed with, just watching the drummer, like, how are you doing that shit that like I can only imagine, and for me it's like there's always something like that about, every band. It's like there, no matter the skill level or whatever, there's just like something that will captivate me. And yeah, I don't know, like a mixed bill is just like an easy way to just like let each band have like their very specific, like, you like this because it's different, and it's just, I
Yeah.
don't know. But
I think that's a great point. I think it allows you to appreciate each band for what they are, as opposed to how they compare, like how they stack up against the other bands on the
yeah,
same bill. They were
yeah,
trying to do the same.
yeah.
We played a really fun mixed bill show recently up in Salem that Hal booked, with Perennial. I don't know if you've heard them, but they're like super kind of like mod poppy. Like I'd gotten into them and I was like, oh, they're kind of from the area. They'd be great to play with. And so it started off like really poppy, and then our friends in Respirator, who were like crusty, metalcore from New York, like they played right after Perennial, and then Mountain Man played, and they were great, kind of heavier stuff, and then we played, and then this band Bubble Scary played. That was like female kind of uh, emo-y, screamo-y stuff, but not like with screamed vocals. And it was just, every band kind of stood out on their own as their own different thing, and it just made the show. It made the show feel like it flew by, because it was, everything was kind of so different, and that was really enjoyable. And yeah, and you just got to appreciate the bands for all their differences.
Yeah,
Um,
it could
I think
be
we also
like if there's five pizzas on the table, you know, or if there's like a pizza and breadsticks and a salad and you know what I mean? It can be like that too, where it's just like
And a plate of tacos, throw a plate of tacos and
exactly,
some fries,
exactly.
you know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Uh,
I guess I was just kind of thinking like, what do I want for dinner? And I'm, but
yeah,
no, but you know, you
it's great. Yeah,
also,
the other day I was on a drive home with my partner, and we pulled up in a parking lot, and there was a Taco Bell and a Popeyes, and they went to the Popeyes, and I went to the Taco Bell, and we just
there you go.
got everything, and
Yeah.
appreciated the variety.
Yeah. Um, it's funny that you mentioned Action Patrol earlier because when I was listening to y'all's record, uh, there's a lot that I could probably there's specific things that I could point out that I'd be like, well, this reminds me of this band or whatever. But in general, I was I had this sort of three bands that kept popping up for me, and that was Action Patrol, Q and Not You, and Fugazi. Like I was like, this is like the merger
I'll
of
take that. That's a good trifecta.
yeah. I was like, this is like the merger of those three bands. Like there's there's the punky like just delivery of Action Patrol. There's like the weirdness of Q and Not You, and then like the guitar interplay and obviously like the vocals, you know, which reminded me of Fugazi. So I was like, yeah, this is like this really interesting like merge of like these three things. And yeah, that's another one where it's like when you say Patrol, like people that know Action Patrol, are like, oh, fucking legendary band, you know, but like they're just not a part of a lot of conversations necessarily, you know.
Yeah, they're one of those bands that I feel like uh, people that know them and like them, like love them. Like they're one of my. I love Action Patrol,
Hmm.
um, but not a lot of people know them.
Hmm.
I mean, like a decent number of people know them, but they're not one of the bands from like that era that's talked about a ton. It's funny. I was living in New York, and I was hanging out and met this guy Dave who hung out with a few times, and he was like a friend of a friend, and we've been hanging out for a while. Like one day he mentioned his band, and I was like, "Oh, what band was that?" And he's like, "Action Patrol," and I was like, "Oh, I fucking love Action Patrol." And so yeah, Dave Grant was like his friend, and but like I'd hung out with him numerous times before realizing he was in Action Patrol, and then I had to like fanboy out over it a little bit because yeah, I love that band. I'm
Yeah,
still bummed. They played a couple reunions. I don't know, probably like 10 years ago, maybe a little more than 10 years ago now. And I didn't go down to Richmond for them, and I'm still kicking myself. And one of them, Sleepy Time Trio, played with them. Yeah, yeah, and I just didn't go, and I still kick myself for that. So
well, Sleepy Time
gotta I
Trio
gotta
is apparently playing again, so
yeah, I'm
yeah,
going
just
to that the fest in Richmond, the Dark Days and Bright Nights fest, and
okay.
so I'm
Yeah, I
psyched
saw
on.
something about a show in Philly or something, I think, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, yeah.
wonder.
Um,
Uh, I heard a room. There's the Policy of Three show,
oh,
and
that's actually what I meant. I'm
and,
getting the
but
two.
heard,
Yeah,
I've heard speculation, not any credible speculation. This isn't like a leak or anything, but that Sleepy Time might end up playing that because it's like, are you still there?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, sorry, my computer shut down. I was worried, or logged me out. I was worried I got kicked off. Because it's like the Monday after the Dark Days Bright Nights festival. It's a weird night to have a pretty big reunion show like that.
yeah,
And so somebody was speculating that maybe Sleepy Time will be playing that. I got tickets to the Policy of Three show too, but
yeah.
I got to figure out if I can actually make it to that. But and
I
then Q and I, another band. I was talking about this recently with somebody that like with all these bands reuniting, like, and I saw Black Eyes a couple like a year or two ago.
mhm.
And I was like, man, like I want a Q and Not You reunion. I would love to go see them again.
Yeah, A Line in the Sand is one of the greatest songs ever written. Like
Yeah,
that song's so fucking good. Like they're a great band, but like that song just like above all else just is just like that is like I mean it's a perfect song. I don't know. I have like there's like a you know it's one of those things where your brain just has all these open tabs, and mine is like got this list of like perfect songs, and that's in it. But yeah,
Well,
you
that's cool that you picked those three bands out because I love all three of those bands. I don't, Fugazi is obviously a huge one for I feel like everybody that's in our generation, and
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I'm honored. I'm excited about those comparisons.
Yeah. Well, I listen, like I said, I listened to a bunch of, uh, I listened to the album that you sent me, which I think at the time of this conversation, it's still not been released, right?
Yeah, that's going to come out sometime this fall on Council. Council's
Mm-hmm.
going to do the vinyl, which is like again as a person coming up from the '90s is a dream come true for me. Council was one of my all-time favorite labels, and so it's rad to do something with them. And so it's coming out, yeah, on vinyl and on Council, and then Ron at Gene Scene is going to do some tapes for us again.
Yeah.
So that's awesome too. He's literally Ron's literally the reason that Reds reunited. So always fun to do stuff with him.
But our bodies aren't theirs, and our lives aren't theirs to use. And our bodies aren't theirs, and our lives aren't theirs to use. We reclaim it, we reclaim it, we reclaim it for ourselves. We reclaim it, we reclaim it, we reclaim it for ourselves. 'Cause our bodies aren't theirs, and our lives aren't theirs to use. And our bodies aren't theirs, and our lives aren't theirs to use. We reclaim it, we reclaim it, we reclaim it for ourselves. We reclaim it, we reclaim it, we reclaim it for ourselves. 'Cause our bodies aren't theirs, and our lives aren't theirs. And our bodies aren't theirs, and our lives aren't theirs. And our lives aren't theirs to use, and our bodies aren't theirs, and our lives.
You said that Council was like one of your favorite labels, but when I was like looking into you personally, I found out that you did a label for a while, and that was
Yeah,
Waking Records, and
yeah,
I I was looking for that through that discography, and I was like, holy shit. Like, not only is it like a lot of my friends, or just like whatever, but then just like like another one of those kinds of things where it's like there's some bands on here that like people don't talk about that fucking blew me away. Like that Hugs, the Tar Pit album that you released, that shit blew
yeah.
me away when I heard that. And like no one ever talks about that band. Like I don't see it anyway, you know?
It's
Um,
yeah. They don't get talked about a lot, and yeah, that record and the record before it were both just like so fucking good. Yeah, I was really they were one of the few bands that I put a record out for that like uh I kind of reached out to before I was friends with.
mhm.
Because I'd gotten that first record that they did, and was just like, this is fucking great. Love it. And kind of through reaching out to them, ended up at the time, Dima, who's in Reds with me, and Colin, who's in Reds now with us, were playing in the Fiction, and I was doing a lot of like setting up shows and setting up tours for them because I wasn't in a band at the time, but only one member in the band, Colin, could drive, and so they were going on a tour, and I was like, well, I'll come along and I'll drive, and from there it kind of went to booking shows and setting up tours and shows for them, and then putting out records with them. But yeah, we like ended up doing a couple uh, tours with Hugs, just through connecting with them, and they were such a great band, and like live they were so good. Yeah, and they kind of they were in Hugs, and then they Hugs evolved to this more like kind of art rock art. Uh, I don't know, post hardcore band called Raku Un. Um, it was also great, but like totally different. And then I feel like that's yeah, just one of those records that's kind of been lost to the years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
But
um, like just to briefly go through some of the other stuff that you released. Of course, this ship will sink, the assistant,
mhm.
bullets in, Sinaloa, birthday boys. You mentioned the fiction, and then there was that like link, with Colin and Colin being in your band now, and I gotta say, like, on y'all's new record, I mean, all of the playing is remarkable. Don't get me wrong, but I was really like, Colin is going the fuck off on some of these tracks. Like, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I really like enjoyed the new record a lot. I hope that a lot of people listen to it. And I know, is there a song out already that I think, but you had already sent me the link, so I didn't have to. I just got to listen to the whole
No,
thing.
yeah, we haven't really we I think it just finished getting mastered maybe 2 weeks ago, and we kind of sent it over to council to get the ball rolling with the vinyl, and are in the process of just like proofing and approving all the artwork. And then I think we're gonna do a couple quote singles before the record comes out. So I think we're shooting to put one out kind of like beginning of August, and then in September, kind of space them out a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And get those streaming or whatever early. But put a little teaser in whatever the announcement was that we put up on Instagram. And yeah, uh, it was making the record was so fun. Like when we made the first Reds record, we recorded with Josh Jakowski, um, from Neil Perry and
Mm-hmm.
Hot Cross. We went out to his garage out in Jersey and recorded. And it's kind of the same thing. We recorded the full record in 2 days, but our drummer at the time, I think there was a snowstorm, and our drummer at the time didn't want to get stuck in Jersey, so he quickly recorded all his tracks and headed back to and I don't know, recording this time with Colin and with Zach, and just playing with Colin and Zach in the band now has just been such an awesome treat. They're both incredible musicians and all just good friends and great people, and um, everything's just felt really easy and really enjoyable doing the band again. And so recording was great, and I hope it's kind of I hope that comes through in the songs and in the record. That I think we're just having a lot of fun doing this, and that's kind of the only reason we're doing it is we're all at an age where we don't have any illusions or pretenses about going big or anything. Not that we ever did, but definitely managing our own expectations and just enjoying it kind of each step along the way.
Yeah. Um. Now, like I was saying before, I listened to the new album, and then I tried to find out, like, for whatever reason, like the link to your Bandcamp from your Instagram account like wasn't working for me. It kept being like, "This isn't a thing. Do you want to register it?" And I don't know if
Oh,
that's just me or what that was, but I also like tried to find y'all's stuff on Google, and that's how I got to the Gene Scene release, which was essentially the first LP, and then like some outtakes, right? Like,
yeah, the
not
Ron
necessarily.
reached out.
I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Ron reached out probably in like I think it was like 2018 or 2019 maybe, and asked if he could put out Is Means the first record on a tape. So this was 12 or so years after it had originally come out, and I didn't really think anybody listened to it that much or cared about it that much at that point. And Ron asked to put it out on a tape. And I reached out to the other folks in the band. Deem and I had kind of been in touch continually um, over those years, but hadn't really talked to Randy, who was our original bassist, or Scott in a while. And everybody was into it. And so Ron did the LP, but then we had extra time on the tape, and so we put the three original demo songs, which are on the LP but different recordings. We put the demo songs on there, and then we had a live a live radio show that we did. We did like a little weekend mini tour with Welcome to Plague Year and Take Down Your Art. Um, and we played it. All of us played at WMUC in Maryland, and we had the live recording of that found somewhere deep in the archives. And that was something that originally, when we were touring with Plague Year, we talked about doing like a split 10-inch of live tracks from that. Um, and then we got the CD. We got a CDR of it as soon as we left the show, and I think both got in our vans and listened to it, and quickly agreed that neither of us wanted those coming out on a record. But with a little bit more distance between it, and just as kind of like a fun project, we're like, yeah, let's throw those on there too. So yeah, some live tracks from that radio show. My voice is pretty shredded, and I think there were some just recording issues, but glad that that's out there too. And then Dima and Josh, after we recorded the first LP, uh, did this weird little studio magic track that is on there as well. So that's all. Yeah, that's what's on the tape.
Okay. Yeah. When I was listening through that, I like, I don't know, I didn't like peruse the song titles beforehand or stuff, and then I was like, oh, I already heard this, and I was like, is this something that they re-recorded for the LP, or like when did I just hear this? And then I look back through and I'm like, oh, I see, I understand what's happening now. But yeah, I don't know, I didn't think that anything that I listened to was like jarring, like oh, this sounds unbalanced, or this sounds, there was some stuff here and there that I like some instances where like vocals were leaning one way or the other, that I personally like on your album, for example, like there's a okay, so like I'm not sure what any of the songs are called, and I'm not actually sure how many songs there are, because the thing you sent me is just like one track
Oh shit,
that's
yeah.
like 18 minutes, and I'm like, that's cool, I'm down with that. I could just listen through it. But the
Sorry,
last
I should have sent you
song
some song titles.
yeah, the last song in particular, where there's the refrain, like where you say like we reclaim it.
Yeah.
There's there's a lot that I found really interesting about like that song in particular. Not that I didn't enjoy the album as a whole, but like I guess when I'm talking about like the vocal things, I'll get to that part first. Well, there's a part where, and this is like the part where you get into the most like sort of a scream than anything on the album, and it makes sense because it's like the last song on the album, so you're like, you've built up to that, and it works really well that way. But also there's a part where like your voice like legit sort of cracks, and
Yeah.
I fuck with that shit like really hard. Like I love that. Like I did a thing and somebody came here and I recorded their vocals and their voice cracked, and they were like, I should redo that. And I was like, we can redo it if you want, because it's your performance. But in my opinion, like, leave it. That's awesome. And so, like, you know, me bringing all that up is just me saying, like, that's my reason why I wouldn't notice. Like, if something was weird here or weird there, I would be like, that was awesome, and chalk it up to, like, sort of just that, like, this thing happened that's sort of unpredictable and it makes the thing better, you know? A lot of people would disagree with that, or else we wouldn't have, like, auto tune and all that, But what else? Some of the other things, and this is more like where we can, I can pose these things as a question that I found really interesting. Like, there's a lot of times where, as a vocalist, we'll sort of we'll hear the song first, and there's a riff or something, and it's like the hook of the riff becomes like sort of the hook of the vocal. And I'm assuming like
Mhm.
that, like that's sort of how, there's the part in that last song where after the bass is playing by itself, the guitar comes in with this sort of like arpeggio-ish like harmony, and then
Mhm.
the we reclaim it part comes in, and it's sort of the same harmony. Like, is this is this instance where you're like you don't? It's the question is like I feel like on your album you do like some really interesting things vocally where it's like sometimes I feel like you're purposely like not not following the music, but you're like I'm creating like a fourth thing that is separate. But then there's instances like that where you're like, no, I'm going to fall in with this particular thing. So the question and all that is that like do is that something that you are like cognizant of? Are you like specifically in different instances like it would be really easy to just like follow that hook and pattern my vocals that way, but like I'm gonna do this other thing, and then sometimes it's just
Yeah.
like you can't fight that, that's just how it has to be? Or is it like am I overthinking all of this?
No, I think a more skillful and musically inclined vocalist might make those decisions, intentionally. I don't. I think for me, I come at being in a band from a totally non-musical background, and have very a very uninformed approach to being a vocalist. I think I don't consider myself a musician at all. I don't, I kind of any sort of music theory or concepts about songs. I generally go over my head. I mean, I think I probably understand more than I think I do, but um, you know, I come at being in a band from a place of wanting to communicate ideas and to make connections with people. And I think I bring because of that, and because I don't play any instruments, and I think I definitely bring a different perspective to the songwriting process than Dima and Colin and Zach, who are all great musicians. And so I think my process for doing the vocals is generally coming at the songs once they're entirely completed. And we have kind of different processes that we use for writing songs. It's usually Dima or Colin, and sometimes Zach will come with a part, either a part or a complete song, and everybody else will figure out where they fit in and how to do their parts. And I kind of generally wait until the song is fully formed musically, and then I sit with it for a minute and I think about the ideas that I have of just topics that I want to touch on, and I sit with the song and I kind of feel out like the vibe of the song, what lyrical content or topic that I want to talk about fits with that vibe. Um, and then I'll start writing lyrics, and part of it is just trying to figure out how to get the ideas that I want to into the form of the song. And so I think that's why sometimes it is where I'm kind of like mirroring a harmony or whatever, and then sometimes it's just forcing it in any way I can find
Sure.
uh, to get to get it in there. Yeah, and so yeah, I mean that's what I would say. I would say, um, it's generally from a place of ignorance, whatever happens vocally,
Well,
in
it's
terms of how it fits with everything else.
yeah, it's very practical in that way, you know, and it's just like, you know, me asking these kinds of questions, and it's like, no, nerd, it's not like that at all. Um, but like,
No, but I love hearing, I love hearing that and hearing about, the same thing happens when I talk about with the songs with DM, Zach, and Colin. They're like, oh, oh, you did this, and I'm like, oh, I suppose I did. I
yeah,
didn't really realize that.
yeah, well,
But everybody's gonna bring their own perspective to everything, and so I always love hearing other people's perspectives and the things that other people pull out and notice.
yeah, I see. I don't. My thing is, I don't know music theory. I just have like music theories. You know, it's like like I'm just like,
I
I
like that. It's
get
kind of like the Jay Z. Kind of like the Jay Z. I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. It's like I don't know music theory. I just got music theories.
yeah, yeah. I
Like
mean,
that.
that's my thing. Is like, cause you know, like I just will obsessively think about this stuff, and like, you know, I write like, you know, a lot of, or if not like all the music, you know, for a lot of my projects, and so I will get to that point later where I'm doing the vocals, and I'll have a sort of a note file or something with all of these, like in this is like track one, and it's got like four random lines that I know are going to go in there, but it's just like these four lines. And I'll go later and I'll be ready to track this stuff and finish piecing things together. And I will specifically be like, I'll be doing a pass and I'll be like, nah, because it's too like, and I don't know. I make those kinds of decisions for sure where it's like, if
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about this enough, if it's so like, if it comes out so easily to where it's just like da 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 da, like give it a little more thought, like go against your
Yeah.
original like impulse, you know, because like, or am I just doing the same thing that I did 100 times, you know? And then sometimes it's like that riff hits and you're just like, fuck no, I'm going with that. Like that's the way this has got to be. Like it's too organic. You just have to, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I always find
Yeah. And now that you mentioned that, like, I will say I definitely did that a good bit with like the writing of these songs, where like it kind of exactly to your point, where it's like, all right, this is the first idea I had, and I think like with Is Means, the first record, I kind of like would always tend to go with the first idea, but I pushed myself a little bit more to be like, all right, what are the other ways I could deliver this, or mix it up a little bit, so it isn't kind of like the first maybe most predictable way of delivering the content. Yeah.
yeah.
This knife's on the tip of my tongue, like his birds, wings be set free. I'm still words cannot be found inside. Nothing written share. Were they ever there? I hesitate to let you inside. Scared of your reaction and things that you might find.
It makes sense, like of course, like when you are vocals only, like in the project, that you wait until the song is completely finished, because like I don't know how many times when like, you know, there was a band that I can think of, for instance, where I did write like all of the song structure, you know, like the
Mhm.
pieces that would become the song, but the band, we would have we would I'd be like, here are the six parts of the song, and here are how I imagine they go from one to the next. And then people would be like, no, we're gonna, like, we should play that way more times, or we should play this one less
Mhm.
times. And so I would have lyrics that fit these things going like X amount of times. And then the next thing I know, this song is like 8 minutes long. And I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? Um,
Yeah.
like, I can't just sing the same shit for 8 minutes. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Or
I
the
think an
inverse.
example.
Like, the
Yeah, I think
inverse can
that
happen where you're like, you wrote all these lyrics, you spent all this time on this, and then they're like, we're cutting that in half. And you're like, fuck,
yeah,
now what? You know?
yeah. The body, that song that you mentioned earlier, that where it's kind of like repetitious at the end, and I'm saying we reclaim it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the few examples of like where I in the songwriting process had kind of an idea of like that end part repeating multiple times. I think initially it like went 2 or 3 times, and I just saw it as like, hey, like let's drag this out. Let's let it escalate and build. I would love to just have like this one part on the record and shows where I can like just like blow out my voice each time and kind of like just not have to think again, like you said, like I don't need a new line for every new lyrics for every line here. I'm just going to repeat it and enjoy that kind of repetitious chant of the lyrics. And it's been a lot of fun. I think writing lyrics for this record, I don't. If you don't have the liner notes and the lyrics, like you could hold up the liner notes or the lyrics for the first record, It's Means, and each of those songs had hundreds of words in them, and nothing ever repeated. There was no chorus, and so partially just to help me maintain my voice a bit in my older age, I was very intentional on this record. And there's still a lot of lyrics, but far fewer. Write fewer lyrics, like get to the point a little bit more, uh, leave some open space in the songs, which I didn't do previously. Um, and yeah, every now and then throw in like a chorus or repeated line. But I guess I do bring a little bit more thoughtfulness to the lyrics than I initially said. But yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
That part is always hard for me. The like, just let the band jam, you know? Like,
hmm
and it's, I don't know. And I'm always like in the same camp. Like, I'm like, damn, who want, who wants to write like all these words in 4 or 5 lines? I said everything that I wanted to say, you know, and but there's a thing, one of my friends said once, like he said, I think that bands don't do a good enough job of telling you what the song is about with the lyrics, and if they don't, like, they need to fix that. And that's something that I understand the point of, but also I'm like, no, I don't like that idea, because like I don't like I don't think that lets people relate to a song in their own way. And I know that like we are in an age where on the like people on the like mega side and stuff like think that Rage Against the Machine is like their music, so like I get how these things can be taken like quite wrongly, but like at the same
yeah,
time I'm like, this here's these 4 lines in this song that encapsulate everything I wanted to say in this song, like, and the rest of the song is me sort of making those make sense to the listener. And
yeah,
I feel like I do the more I try to make something make sense to someone, the worse off that I am, because like I'm so bad at it. Like it's just like eventually people are just like, I know less about this song than I did 10 minutes ago. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like that whole like just let the band jam thing, and how to, like which parts, like which parts stand out the best on their own musically, and like but you're also like, but that part fucking rips. Of course I want to like do something right there. You know, it's I don't know. Like
Yeah, and I think for me, and I don't know if in any of your projects you're only like a standalone vocalist, but for me, like only being on vocals, it's like, all right, well, if I'm not singing in this part, then I got to come up with some dance moves, and I'm not a dancer, so I don't,
oh,
I don't know what to do.
yeah, I mean, I'm not. I kind of am a dancer. I am not. I've not been a standalone vocalist in a very long time, but I didn't say I was good at dancing, but I do really enjoy the like, only having a microphone and like,
Yeah,
I just got to be careful because that's how I like chipped a tooth back in like 1999.
yeah.
But yeah, it's I
But
don't
yeah,
know.
like for me, like too, like you're talking about people should be able to understand what the song's about from the lyrics. I intentionally try to steer away from uh, maybe overly opaque or poetic lyrics. I think partially just because like I'm not great at it when I try to get poetic. It's not really like I was a creative writing major, but short stories, and so much more of the like I'm gonna kind of just relatively directly and clearly say what I have to say. Again, like I said, like I don't come at this from like I'm a musician perspective. I come at it from like I want to communicate with people, and so I think my lyrics are generally fairly easy to interpret and then understand. I think the risk that I feel there sometimes is feeling too preachy or feeling like I am showing that I think I have everything figured out, which I definitely don't. Um, but knowing that it's my perspective and a perspective that people might connect with. Um, and so yeah, like I don't have like books of lyrics that I've written before the songs um, yeah, and I try to keep it pretty direct and simple. Um,
Yeah,
Definitely use smaller words in this record.
yeah. I I don't I don't know. I so like I do a
I thought
lot. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
a good example of your point though about the MAGA stuff is we have a song. Oh, it's the Body song, um, and there was a lyric that was originally um, they produced the poison to sell the cure, and I'd sang it like that a few times, and Colin was like, "What's that lyric?" And I told him, they produced the poison to sell the cure, and he was like that sounds kind of anti-vaxxy, and I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, it does." And so intentionally changed that lyric to they produced the weapon to sell the shield, which is still a little vague, but not as easily misinterpreted as being like an anti-vax stance, which I definitely didn't want to leave out there for misinterpretation.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely understand that. I personally would not have taken it that way, but I understand a lot of people would. And so that's a good call probably on y'all's part. But yeah, it's like I definitely have just like I definitely have like just sat down and like written lyrics and then just written the music around the lyrics. I definitely have written the song and then just like with no words whatsoever, just like sat down and wrote all the lyrics like into the proper spots, like in a row, just like right like that. And I definitely have done like all of this stuff where it's like I've picked up the guitar and written the first part and then the second part and then the third part and done these things in the most logical order, etc., etc. But like the more I get into playing like different instruments and the more I've gotten into like different kinds of writing, like I like all of this stuff became like a puzzle to me. And I
Mhm.
I'm constantly just having like an idea and I'm just like I like that idea and I'll put it down somewhere, whether it's on guitar or whether it's a couple lines, or what or a cadence of
Mhm.
vocals, and then they all start coming together, and so that's how my like process works more often than not these days. Which is, I don't know, it's very it's very reactive, which is sort of like that's what you're doing when you hear the entire song and you're doing your thing off the entire song, except that like I'm by myself a lot of times creating these things. So like I'm reacting to other instances where I was creative about something. So it's similar,
Yeah,
but it's
and
different, I think.
I do have, I think, similarly that reactive tendency of um in thinking about ideas and in thinking about lyrics, like reacting to something I'm reading or like that comes up where if nothing else, I'll like open the notes on my phone and just be like, write a song about this. Like write some lyrics about this. Sometimes I won't write down any of the lyrics that I come up with then. I'm just like, all right, here's a topic to dig into. And then sometimes it'll be like a line, maybe two lines that come up a
Mm-hmm.
conversation I had or something I'm
Yeah.
reading where I'm like, all right, here's a point I want to make, figure out what song it fits in, and then build up around that.
Yeah. Yeah. It, it's it's interesting when you like, it's got to be interesting for you where you have this sort of like, this is a band that has come back after a long period of time. It's got to be interesting for you with that perspective of like, oh, this is like the kind of like politics or whatever like that you were super interested at that time when those songs were written, and now like you're looking at your new album and you're like, these are all these like current things that I'm interested in. Like, how much of that is like still, I don't want to say relevant, it's always relevant, you know what I mean, like, but like how much of it is like you're still like, I'm still singing about the same kinds of things, or is it just that you direct like each song so specifically at a certain thing that that's not like really the case?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both. I mean, the first however many months we were doing Reds again, we hadn't written any new material. We were just playing the old record and the old stuff. And it felt good that I could sing all those songs without disagreeing with any of the politics behind them. It felt kind of shitty that all the politics still felt
Yeah.
highly relevant.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the lyrics in that one were written when we were invading Iraq, and so the idea of creating fear of uh, xenophobic fear of other people in order to manipulate people for political gain, still very relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So the politics and the topics that we touched on that record, think still felt relevant and aligned with who I am and who we are as people now. So that felt good. Um, and I think we can stick those songs into any set we play now, and it still feels like there's continuity. And then yeah, I mean, like there was definitely a different perspective in writing this record. I think um, it's funny. One of the songs on the first record is this song called "Dividing Unions" that I wrote about my partner at the time, and this was it was 2 or 3 years into our relationship, and it was about marriage and the fact that at the time, in the 2004, uh, gay marriage wasn't legalized in the country yet, and it was kind of about how if marriage doesn't include and represent all people, then do we need it? Um, but it was also about my relationship with my partner at the time. A few years in that, we weren't married, we weren't planning on getting married at that time, and it felt like that didn't diminish our relationship in any way, because it wasn't about the institution; it was about the love.
Yeah.
And so, fast forward 20 years to when Red started playing again, and my marriage. to that person was ending right at the same time as Red started playing again. Which definitely gave me like a cathartic outlet for all this stuff of processing that. And several of the songs uh, on the record are just about how do we process and deal with loss? How do we process suddenly having an entirely different future than we thought we might have? And that's the title. The truth of impermanence comes from one of the songs. Is the third song on the record called "Break to Build," and it's just it comes from the perspective of like I think when I was young and when people are young, you often think that things are going to be with you forever, or that there are things in life that'll never change. And I think as you get older, you realize that no, everything in life is constantly changing, and that nothing, in fact, is permanent. Um, Even if people stay with you your entire life, they're not the people they were when you first met them, and we're not the same people day to day. So I think that perspective wasn't entirely new to me at the time of writing these lyrics, but was really driven home. And so I think that's a theme that not even necessarily intentionally runs through the record, but unintentionally, like once the record and all the lyrics were written, and I think it really got driven home for me in typing up the lyrics for the lyric sheet, which is kind of the first time I ever wrote everything down in the same place. Like, just how much this idea of change and evolution and impermanence and rebuilding and healing comes up throughout the record. Yeah, so that was definitely not entirely a new perspective, but our lyrics have always been a mix of political and personal. And so it's kind of you might go from one song about how terrible the American healthcare system is to the next song about all of a sudden you have to rebuild your life because your partner of 23 years isn't your partner anymore. Um, and that balance of personal and political, because the personal is political too. So
Yeah.
I kind of went on a tangent or a rant there, but not really
No,
rambled.
I no, I understand. It's yeah, I don't know. I guess, and the other thing I guess that I was like, it's yeah, to your point about like your your previous tracks like still feeling so relevant, like even though like you've said like things are always changing, it is very weird to still just be like, I this is still so relevant and I'm still pissed about the same shit. Like it's 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 like a I don't know. You think you see all this progress in the world, and then you realize like you're like fundamentally, as much as things change, that some things are still the same, and it's I don't know. I guess
Yeah,
that
and the same struggles just present in different ways.
yeah
And I think there's for me there's I think can be some fear in the idea of impermanence, right? Like we want to believe that certain things will always be true in our lives, and so the idea that that might not be the case can be a fearful thing. But the fact that no condition that we exist within or that we currently face will always be true can also be a point of hope in a time where things can feel really defeating, like a lot of the current political climate. It can kind of feel like things are fucked and maybe lose hope, but the idea that like none of this is permanent and things are going to continually change, gives that maybe that light at the end of the tunnel, or not into the tunnel, because I guess the tunnel just keeps going. But
yeah, it just does. We just won't be here. Like like it'll just keep
yeah,
going. Like once we're not here or whatever, and that's fine too. Um, yeah, so like you said, the album is coming on Council, and with the way that vinyl plants are now, it's like sometimes you just really can't say, but there'll be some singles coming in the next few months. Other than that, like, are you what are y'all doing as far as like, shows coming up and things like that, or are you trying to like schedule like a few shows around the album's release, things like that?
Yeah, I think we started. Now that we're in like the queue at the record plant, we
Mm-hmm.
are able to get like a ballpark idea. So I think the record should be out October, November.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a show that we're playing in November that I definitely, we're kind of like, oh, we want the record by then. And other than that, we're playing. I don't know when this will be posted, but we're playing in July 27th with Respire, um, and Kirby Kiss, and Who Put Bella in the Witch Elm, and People's Temple. It's Old Sounds in Brooklyn, so that'll be a fun one. We play. I feel like we play about 50% of all of our shows with Kirby Kiss.
Yeah.
Um, they're good friends. We love those guys, and so that's always, it's always a treat. And they're also on Council.
Their new album's
And
great.
then
Yeah.
yeah, their new album's so good. And they're just they're great guys and great live band. And then we're lining up a weekend of shows early October with Spirit Killer, with Tom's other band.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be like October 3rd and 4th, and somewhere in New York and somewhere in Jersey. And I think that's kind of it for shows right now. I mean, we definitely want to play more. And so, hopefully things pop up. Summer's usually a pretty slow time for us because I've got a 12-year-old kid at home, and I'm a teacher, so I'm off during the summer. So, don't really we practice in Brooklyn, and I work in Brooklyn, but I live in Jersey, so not much practice over the summer. And Colin's in Europe right now with Alicia.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing she's doing like their week in Europe, and so yeah, summer's kind of a slow time. So we're hopefully ramp things back up in September and play a few more shows. I'd love to get out of town a little bit more. We did a show up in Salem, which was great, and we've done some like New Jersey shows, but I'd love to do a weekend or two. Just get out there a bit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we've been chatting for a while, and I certainly could just sit here and chat, but I try to keep these to an hour. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that we should talk about?
Not that I can think of. I think it covered most of the stuff that I can think of.
Okay, awesome.
I think like you mentioned being, I think, in the same ballpark age range as me. I think like one of the things that's been really encouraging and inspiring to me recently, like as a punk over 40, is just seeing all the other bands out there, and not only the reunion bands. I think the reunion bands are great, and I love getting to see some of my favorite bands that I never thought I would see. But seeing more people that are in my age range and our age range, sticking with it and making new music, and showing that like this can be a lifelong thing. And I don't know how long Reds will stick with it in this current incarnation or any incarnation, but just really being able to appreciate the opportunity to be doing this again at 46, which I didn't think I would have. And yeah, it's just been great. And then also seeing so many others out there sticking with it.
And that was my conversation with Evan Kilgore. Thank you so much, Evan, for taking the time to chat with me. Y'all make sure you check out The Truth of Impermanence when it drops, because it is a great record. Thanks to all of y'all for listening wherever you are as well. Don't forget to stop by patreon.com/humanmachine to support the show and help us keep going. Until next time, take care and do good things.